Welcome to the Red Text,
a crossroads of the holy and heretical.
Join us now for another episode in Unholy Communion.
Welcome back to the Red Text Podcast. My name is Fonzie. I am Witch Illumiscente on Instagram and on the Twitter.
And I am Ryan, aka the Mestizo Mystic on Instagram, or just at Mestizo Mystic on Twitter. How you doing today, Fonzie?
Ryan.
Yeah.
I booked my ticket to come see you in November.
I know, I'm so excited.
It's a long ways away, but I booked my ticket to. First of all, here's a qualm I have. So San Francisco is like 7 miles. Like, it's not a big city, right? It's only like by 7 miles by 7 miles or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right.
So I wanted to stay in the city because I'm not going to have a car with me, right? So I wanted to stay in the city. Why is it so fucking expensive to stay in the city? It is so expensive to stay anywhere in the city. It's wild. Like, I'm not going to say how much it costs, but it costs a pretty... I mean, I'm okay with it because I haven't had a vacation in a really long... And I'm going to be there for 6 days. So, like, I'm going to be making this trip worth it. Like, it's going to be really dope. But, like, I was just like, God damn, San Francisco is expensive. Even just, like, getting, like, a little boutique, cutesy little hotel was, like, it's pretty expensive. But I'm fucking stoked that I booked the ticket. I'm so fucking excited. But yes, I am very, very, very much in a good mood this week. One, because I booked that ticket and it kind of like solidified. I mean, you know, anything can happen within the next, what is that, 5 months? What are we?
May, June,
what is
July,
time?
August, September, October. 6 months.
Six-ish months. Yeah, sure. I mean, the time of this being released is definitely gonna be less, but right now it's May, and anything can happen between now and November. But you know, fingers crossed, everything works out, and I get to still come to. I can still come to San Francisco and visit all y'all. I'm very, very excited. Hopefully, Franny can come with me.
I hope
come
so.
with me.
Come on me.
I really hope Franny can come too, because that would be just so cunt if we both came. It reminds me of I sent it to Johnny actually. It reminds me of that I forgot which Marilyn Monroe movie it was, but it's like Marilyn Monroe and like that brunette chick like walking into the event, like walking into the gig, like side to side and like strutting, and everyone's kind of looking at her. It's like the LA Queens are coming. So that's how I'm gonna feel like me and Franny coming into San Francisco. It's gonna be cunt. But yeah, I'm doing really, really well this week. I was able to finish a print that I'm going to be sending out to the Patreon, which is so beautiful. It's actually Ryan who gave me the idea to do this print, and I was really happy with how it turned out. So that's happening. I just sent it to the printer. I'm supposed to be getting it within the next couple of days. And blah, de blah, de blah. How are you?
I'm all right. The week started off well, but I just... I don't know, I've been struggling with a lot of stuff in my head lately. So after I got off work, I live not too far from the beach. So I drove to the parking lot near the beach and kind of just chilled there, walked around, prayed, and just asked for clarity and guidance. Because it's just like I have so many paths before me and I don't know which to take, which like that sounds like the opposite of a problem, but it's like so overwhelming where it's to the point where I'm just like stressed about it instead of like excited. Because each of them are like a door to a completely different like opportunity and like phase of my life, so it's just so fucking daunting, and I don't know, it's really overwhelming, and it was just getting to me a lot today. So I'm just praying for clarity and hoping that comes through, and it's just been weighing on me. But aside from that, I've been really good. Like I said, we were coming out of a crunchy April to a much better May, and so I'm excited because my partner will be here. Well, today, as this recording is Cinco de Mayo, so woo. But my partner, as of today, will be here in exactly 3 weeks, technically less than, because he flies in the morning. And so I'm really excited for that. He's never visited San Francisco before, so I'm going to get to give him, you know, the whole tour and just party up with them, and just, you know, being in a long distance relationship is really hard. So it's just fun to be able to have these moments to anticipate. And so that's what's kind of getting me through, just knowing it's 3 weeks until we'll be together again. He'll be here for a full week, pretty much. So that's going to be really excited. More or less a week, like 6 days, like yours. But I'm looking forward to that for sure. But other than that, Nothing too wild has happened for me. Just trying to survive and get these bills paid, you know.
Work. Yeah, you're gonna have to give me like a whole thing, like, because I'm assuming you and I are not gonna be like hanging out all day every day, because that's just unrealistic. You got a full-time job, so you're gonna have to give me a whole list of things to do, and let me get lost in the city, because I definitely want to go to the mission district, because I've been there before and I love Mission. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I do like just kind of walking. I remember going there when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it. But
Maybe I got a brunch spot for you.
Ooh.
For us.
Okay. Which one?
Okay, so I scratched that because I forgot you don't eat meat, but it's called the Sycamore. And unless they raised their prices since the last time I've been there, which has been years ago, it was like $30 for all you can drink mimosas or bottomless mimosas and a meal, like both, and which is like a steal. And
do they only serve meat there?
I don't remember. It's just I remember the meal I used to get was like a pulled pork barbecue sandwich. Oh shit, so good. But it's cool because the Sycamore is located right next to this alley called Clarion Alley, which is full of different murals and paintings done by local residents in San Francisco, which all have like a really cool theme around them, usually like social justice oriented or surrounding like economic issues in the city, race issues, inequality, things of that nature. So they all have like a moral to these murals.
That alleyway is around the corner, if I'm correct. Is there a thrift store next to that alley? Is it like...
Yes. I think on the other side of the alleyway, there's it's not Out of the Closet. It's called Community Thrift Store.
Community,
CTS.
that's the one. It's like
I love that
CTS or something like that.
Yeah, CTS. That's like my favorite thrift store.
Yeah. That's the one I want to go to. I've been wanting to visit that because I've heard really great things about that shop.
Okay, well, we can get bottomless mimosas, a meal, and then go thrift shopping while drunk.
Yeah, let's do that. I also want to go to the beach. I want to go.
Hell yeah.
I want to walk the woods. You know, all the cunty things.
Well, if I'm still living at the place that I currently live, the beach and the park are right next to me, baby. So you can get all of it.
Oh, and then I want to cook you dinner. I need to cook y'all dinner because I've been telling you how great I am at cooking, and I need to prove myself.
I need to see the receipts.
I'll bring the receipts, baby. I will. We should do a boodle feast. We should do a huge Kamayan fucking eating with your hands.
Please, I would love.
I'll do that. I will cook the whole thing. Anyways.
No, I was gonna say, speaking of food and being gluttons.
Yeah. Yeah, good segue.
Today's episode, we are talking about the S word, sin.
I was about to say slut, slag.
So why was I thinking slut too? I mean, I guess that could fall into sin, but you know.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. Okay, so sin. Personally, before we get into like how society or the community, like Christians, Catholics, who use sin as a word, who use it kind of all the time. Before we get into that, how do you personally define, or how do you feel about the word sin? Like, if someone came up to you and asked you, Ryan, how do you define sin? What would you say?
I'm glad you asked that because I was going to plan to ask. I'm glad you asked that because I plan on asking you the same exact thing. But it has taken a lot of reconstructing for me, obviously because I was born and raised Catholic, so I was always like taught the traditional sense of the word sin, right? But especially in my folk Catholic practice, which has really evolved over the past 2 or so years, I've come to know the word personally for me in a different sense than what the church teaches or what mainstream evangelical Christianity or Catholicism teaches the word sin to be. So to answer your question, what I consider sin to be is anything that draws you away from the divine or God, how you perceive spirit, source, universe, whatever that is, but also not just God, but also like community and the people around you, and just kind of deteriorates your spirit, I guess, so to speak. So anything that really draws you away from divinity, however you understand and view and worship or venerate it, and deteriorates your spirit. So someone that's really helped me in terms of understanding sin from a different context, or in a different context, is W's podcast, St. Anthony's Tongue, and that's just really what stuck with me, is like sin is whatever really draws you away from the divine. The Catholic Church is going to have a whole checklist of what sin can be, what falls under sin, and but for me, in my practice, to answer your question, sin is whatever draws you away from the divine and harms your spirit and your soul. But what about you? Do you have a similar viewpoint, or how do you personally view sin?
Yes, I do have a similar viewpoint. I originally had, and actually, we have the receipts because we actually talked about this very briefly in our our first episode on folk Catholicism. So my opinion has changed on how I view sin, because before it was like, I don't think sin actually exists. I think it exists to some extent, but I think it's defined differently depending on the person that you're talking to. I agree with you where there is a version of sin where it's anything that really kind of pulls you away from your devotion and pulls you away from basically the warmth and the guidance and the light of God, right? Now that's not, I don't think it's I don't think it's that rigid. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to that, and I think different people have different opinions on what that is. But primarily what I think sin in kind of a broad sense means to me is anything that is against nature, like anything that kind of goes against nature and humanity, and also what goes against who you are personally. So for example, something as simple as polluting is a sin because it's a crime against nature. Something on the opposite, on the peak of that kind of spectrum, murder, pedophilia, that's a crime against nature. Sexual assault, trigger warning, I'm sorry, that's a crime against nature. Rape, that is a crime against nature. So anything that's like a crime against nature and the things around us. Deforestation, crime against nature. Colonization, crime against nature. So those are acts of sin, in my personal opinion. Now, when you kind of incorporate it within your own self, within your own practice, anything that dehumanizes you is also a crime against nature. Anything that kind of makes you less natural to yourself is a sin. So denying myself as being a magical practitioner or a witch is a crime against nature. Denying myself my devotion to God and to Mary and to the saints, that is a crime against nature. So there are different things, and that evolves, that could change, that could kind of shift as my practice also shifts and evolves. My opinions may change, but as of right now, where I stand, anything that goes against nature and the natural flow of how things around you work is sinful. Patriarchy, that's sin. Corrupt politicians, sin, because they are actively trying to force certain policies to kind of eradicate nature, right? I mean, we could just talk about some
community.
Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about what just recently happened with the opinion draft of the Supreme Court in their attempts to overturn Roe versus Wade. So that is an act against God. That is an act against nature. So that's how I see it.
Totally. I have this page up from this Catholic website called walpolecatholic.net, and so I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs. It's not too long. So they don't cite the exact part of the Catholic Church's catechism where it states this, but they say, what is sin? Sin in the catechism of the Catholic Church. Sin is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. It is a failure in genuine love for God and neighbor caused by a perverse attachment to certain goods. It's been defined by St. Augustine as an utterance, a deed, or a desire contrary to the eternal law. Sin is an offense against God. It sets itself against God's love for us and turns our hearts away from it. Like the first sin, it is disobedience, a revolt against God through the will to become like God's, knowing and determining good and evil. Sin is thus love of oneself, even to the contempt of God. And then it goes into kind of elaborate between what the church defines as mortal sin and venial sin, but I'm not going to go into those semantics. I just want to touch on, I agree with the part where it mentions that sin is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience, and it's a failure in genuine love for God and neighbor caused by perverse attachments to certain goods. That I agree with, right? Mm-hmm. Like it reminds me of the temperance card and the devil card of tarot. These needs for balance, and then the devil representing imbalance, more attachment to things for personal pleasure, for power, for gain. As you were mentioning, patriarchy, patriarchy, oppression, racism, sexism, whatever that is, capitalism, using these systems and positions and qualities of power to maintain control over other people, places, or things that make you forget the true beauty or meaning of them, right? Whereas I see sin as more as that first sentence, as an offense against reason, truth, the right conscience, the genuine love for God and neighbor, right? So when we sin, it takes us away from God, it takes us away from neighbors and communities. My older brother, he was a monk in seminary school, was studying theology before he decided to stop being a monk, because again, he disagreed with the views of the church. And that's how he told me that he was taught, is that sin is what draws you away from God and draws you away from community. So whereas, a lot of evangelical Christians are going to be like, gay sex is a sin, or abortion is a sin, or this, that, and the third, like these literally very, I don't want to say minor things, but where they define sin as certain acts, or especially when they cite Leviticus, which was part of the Old Testament, which were all these different rules and regulations. But mind you, they forget the historical context, that these were tribes back then that were trying to persevere and populate. So of course they're going to have things like, obviously, no homosexual sex, because that's not going to contribute to populating and keeping the tribe going and creating generations upon generations. It was less so about immorality between two men and more so like, we need to make sure we're adhering to things that are paving the way for future generations, right? To make sure this tribe survives. Whereas that doesn't necessarily hold true to today. And it's just really disappointing to see how people have taken the word sin and ran with it. And it's so funny because it's such an ego fueling word, which to me, fueling your ego is a sin, right? Like you're going on this power trip saying, oh, I'm better than you because I don't do this. What you're doing is a sin. You're going to go to hell. Ma'am, you like just cheated on your husband like 5 times in the last year, and you're worried about me like topping this cute, like my partner or whatever, you know? I think you need to chill the fuck out, because our love is probably more divine and moral than yours with your straight evangelical Christian husbands.
Also, if you want to talk about natural, why you shouldn't be having, if two biologically male people decide to have sex with each other, how is it unnatural when God put the prostate in the asshole?
Yep. And also, if it's a true divine union, because sex is such a spiritual communication, or sex is such a spiritual act of communion, right? Like, sure, you can go fuck and just like have it end at a fuck, but like, even though I'm only turning 26 this year, I realize I can only have sex with people that I have some sort of connection with. That doesn't mean it has to be, being in love with them. But now that I have a partner who I love and am in love with, like the sex between us from the very start, before we even became partners, was like divine, like unlike anything I'd ever experienced. So you can't tell me that, one, this is outside of what the church would say, this is sex outside of marriage, but two, also homosexual act of sex or homosexual intercourse. Like, the sparks and shit I feel when I have intercourse with my partner it brings me closer to God. In my practice, really, it feels divine, and it truly feels like a soul connection. And you cannot tell me that is a sin. You cannot tell me that is a sin. And so, sorry, darling, I took the mic and ran with it, but like,
that's okay, darling. Let me tell you something. I don't even have to have feelings, darling. Let me tell you something. There are boys that I meet, I don't even know their goddamn names. I don't even see their faces. And that shit feels divine. So when we talk about sin being anything that is a crime against nature, it feels so fucking natural. So if it feels natural, and it's literally it's literally violent against the self to deny yourself these urges. Okay? That is sinful, to deny yourself of these urges. There is a reason why there are folks who would rather unalive themselves than live on denying themselves of who they truly are. Because unaliving themselves is just better, because they just don't have to feel anymore. I mean, that's just how they see it. And I'm sorry, but sin, in the context of the Catholic Church and also within just institutionalized Christianity, is propaganda. It is a way for the church to control.
You're going to say we're made and created in God's image and God's perfect, but then you're going to say because he made me with this quote unquote flaw of being queer. No, like, first of all, God has no gender. It even says that in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that while God is constantly referred to as Father, ultimately he's genderless. And so, first of all, God has no gender. Secondly, that just backs up my theory that Jesus was gender fluid or gender queer. Because if Jesus, the Holy Trinity, if God is Jesus and Jesus is God, or that they're one and the same, then Jesus wasn't necessarily a man. Because if God has no gender, then you're limiting Jesus Christ by assigning him the gender of man. Anyways, the point that I'm trying to make with this is that he was gender queer and queer and hung out with queers. And you're gonna tell me that me, a queer, is imperfect, or that me just my mere existence is a sin?
Me?
Like, come on.
Am I the villain?
Am I the villain?
Yeah. Like you're gonna look at me, someone who is for the liberation for folks, for the liberation of people of color, for the liberation of queer folks. All I want is good. All I want is for people to hold hands and get along. You're gonna think that I'm the villain because I choose to fuck dudes in the ass. Like, come on. Like, it's so rudimentary, but they fucking run with it. They really run. It's common sense, honestly. And there's always this argument. It's like, you chose. This is a choice. This is something that you chose to do. I was like, all right, please, let me just use your logic against you for a minute. Tell me how old you were when you chose to be straight. How old were you when you chose to be straight? They can't answer that question for you because they just knew. They knew it. They were never attracted to the same sex. It's the same logic, but backwards. I have used that argument against family members. Okay, you know what? I don't even care. I've used that same logic against my father, my own father. And the only thing that he has been able to rebuttal is, you know what? You're always right. Fuck this conversation, because you're always right, right? He always it's always that like dismissive, like, because there's no argument. There really isn't. And now we're going into this whole like, queer liberation thing, but it's really, really important because as queer folks, as me and Ryan have experienced the human experience as queer folks, our sexuality and the folks that we choose to love or choose to be with intimately is a kind of an anchor point to how we live our lives. And it's a discussion that we've had, especially through, I'm speaking for me, especially through my 20s. That was kind of the center of everything. My family members have kind of softened. I think they've just kind of like gradually just like, you know what, this is just, I can't do anything about it anymore. He's way too like, doesn't give a shit. So I'm just gonna stop giving a shit, but the act of being with another man, that specific sin has been like such a centerpiece to my life. And it's one of the things that I first had to deconstruct when it came to the idea of eternal damnation. Like this was the thing, this was the ticked box that I was never going to be able to untick, and it made me like just like plummet into this pit of absolute just existential, just I don't even know, destruction. Because I was like, why do I can't continue. I can't continue living my life, because after my life is over, there's literally nothing else for me but a pit of fire and hell and eternal damnation and torture. And that's why I'm saying is that all of this is such heavy. Also, by the way, a man should never lay with a man was not the original translation, folks. It was not the original translation. It was never, you are not allowed to be gay. It was, you are not allowed to sleep with children. That's what it was. Sorry, go look it up, please. Go check, fact check me. I dare you. Please do it. But that's exactly what the translation was. And it's been warped. It's been totally warped. And if it's warped, that's the red flag saying that it's total propaganda. It's absolute propaganda.
Right. I mean, there's this is veering in a different topic, but there's so many different translations of the Bible, and there's some modern translations. Like if we go back to our episode with Tarot Exegete Chris, he brought up one of those Bibles that the translation was just so modern that it really lost its beautiful meaning. I can't remember the exact passage we read or what chapter or whatever, but it was just so modern that it was just like, now wait a minute, that's not what they meant whatsoever. And so unless you're like fluent in Aramaic and Greek, Hebrew, and Latin, and can look at these original texts and translate it yourself, like we're going based off of translations that have been passed from man to man to man, from king to their courts, who have paid for these translations. I mean, the King James version was it was paid for by King James. So like, that's these people in positions of power. Who knows how many alterations have been made to these original texts or have been misconstrued in certain ways that Jesus Christ never meant for these words to be misconstrued.
Right.
And so that's just the tangent I was going on to say that, like, again, I think it's more important not to focus on these hard and fast religious rules. I think these traditions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, any religion, it all started with a good purpose, a good intention, but have just been so fucking twisted. And but like with Christianity and Catholicism specifically, especially evangelical Christianity, they took the word sin and just fucking ran with it. Evangelical Christianity takes the Bible and picks and chooses what they want and then runs with it. Like, if anything, the Catholic Church is the closest thing to what the original Christians believed in and practiced. And not necessarily I'm saying I agree with the dogma and the catechism of the church, but like if we look at the rituals and things that they believed and practiced, like it is the most mystical shit that the most likely early Christians also practiced. Now, don't quote me on that. Again, I'm not a theologian. I don't have the sources or links to back that up. But generally speaking, when we look at all branches of Christianity, Catholicism is one of, if not the oldest forms that were likely to have been what the early Christians practiced, aside from Gnosticism and things like that. But it's just so sad because it's like all the years that I fluctuated, I would go through waves, Fonzie, where like there'd be a year or so where like I felt really drawn back to Catholicism and really wanted to come back, but it was always my queer identity that held me back. I was like, oh my God, that's a sin, so I can't, how can I, relate to a God who doesn't love me because of the way I am? But now I realize, like, no, this is just what I was taught by other people. And how are you going to say this God is all merciful, all loving, all forgiving, but because I'm attracted to not even the same sex because I'm non-binary, but like because I'm queer and attracted to other queer individuals, that makes me less than or separate from God? I'm pretty sure God would want me to be in a pure, loving, divine communion with someone in a queer relationship more so than the millions and millions of Christians who are in marriages that they're unhappy but don't want to get divorced because it goes against the religion, and so they spend their entire life unhappy with someone who they're truly not in a divine communion with. So again, it's just part of being a folk practitioner is one of the amazing parts of being a folk practitioner is being able to redefine these concepts for ourselves, thus bringing us closer to the divine, right? I mean, like, if we go into a church, if you or I go into any Catholic church and tell a priest how we have interacted with the Blessed Mother Mary in our practices, they probably think we're talking to a demon, not the actual Blessed Mother. So there's no way these rules and traditions set forth thousands of years ago can still be upheld to the context of what they were created for in today's modern age, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We as humans, we've evolved. Our opinions have evolved. Things are considered okay that used to not be okay. I don't know, like blending fabrics. That used to be considered not a good thing for you to do. It's like walk into any Forever 21. How many folks are trying on their best friends, Polly and Esther? You know what I mean? You can't. We need to change with the times. The scripture is important in regards to knowing and seeing the traditions and being able to pass it on, yes. But the dogma needs to change. The opinions need to change. What is right and what is wrong needs to change. Now, there are things that carry over. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about how murder and pedophilia and sexual assault is not, it's always wrong. Those will always be wrong things to do. But God, for the love of, can we stop with the anti-queer bullshit? Like, honestly, it's so tired. It is so fucking tired, and I am so tired of defending myself. Now, going back to like when you were mentioning like the beauty of being a folk practitioner is, yes, being able to redefine how we see these things, but also being able to pass them on is so exciting for me, because it's like, okay, so we're kind of developing like this new kind of praxis on how to incorporate Catholicism and Christianity, and then being able to kind of teach folks, when the time comes, like if I ever become a mentor, if I ever become a parent, right? God willing, I hope that something like that happens. I think I would be a fucking dope dad. I'm not saying that I'm going to be, but I think I would be really cool.
I think you'd be a pretty fucking cool dad.
Thank you. I would definitely have the best dressed kids in the whole kindergarten class. They would slay. So Where was I going with that? But yeah, like being able to pass on these like kind of like new kind of ways of thinking of sin, and being able to like instill and impart this wisdom, and also make them so much more aware of what to look out for. It's like, don't worry about those motherfuckers, they're idiots, you know. um I like that. I like us kind of making our own pet platform for people to stand on, and then gradually the platform will grow and grow and grow, and it'll eventually develop into just a platform full of sinners. I can't wait. But yeah, something that I do want to kind of go into a little bit of detail is are there things that you find sinful? Now, this could get kind of personal, and you are definitely allowed to occlude whatever you feel like you shouldn't talk about. But is there anything that you are actively trying to work on that you find quote unquote sinful, that you're trying to kind of work on, or like work for, or kind of make better,
Absolutely. Anger, impatience, jealousy. I think especially my burnout with my current job, which I hit my 5-year anniversary on May 23rd.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I am proud of the accomplishment of having a job for this long, but it is not my calling, it is not my passion, and I'm reaching a point of being at something that doesn't make me happy for so long that it reflects in my actions towards others. And that's where the sin of kind of me being an asshole to clients sometimes kicks in, and it's something I'm mindful of and aware of, and like helps me refrain from being an asshole. But sometimes it's just like, if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed and someone's really fucking trying me, like, I'm gonna match their energy. And I know that's not necessarily the mature thing to do. Oh, okay, here's a fun story. Here's one example from today. So this chick comes in, right, and she's like, I'm here to do a wire transfer. I'm like, great, do you have a Chase account? Oh fuck, hold on. So here's a great story from today. This lady comes in and she's like, I want to do a wire transfer. I'm like, great, do you have an account with us? She's like, no, my boyfriend does though. I'm here to do it for him. And I'm like, are you on the account with him? She's like, no, but he called and they said that it was okay for me to come and do it. And she was giving me attitude, like right off the bat. She comes in, takes her biker helmet off, and she's white, her boyfriend's white, because he ends up coming in too. And I was, I was like getting started. I was pissed. I was like, well, who did he speak to? Does he have a name? Because I thought she said that like he calls him at my branch. And he's like, no, but I can call him right now and he could tell you. I'm like, ma'am, like, that's great that you have his ID and everything, but if you don't have an account and you're not on the account with him, we can't do a wire transfer for you. And she's like, but these people said he could. And I'm just like, who did he speak to? And she's like, the title company, we're buying a home. I'm like, so he spoke to someone that wasn't the bank that told you this. So you're getting our policies and procedures from a different company. That's not where I work. And so then she gets her boyfriend to come in, and they're both I took care of it and they left happy, but like, because that's what I do. And but at first they were both giving me a bit of attitude, like, this is an inconvenience, da 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 da. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm just following policy. Like I don't know, it just, they came in hot, I was matching their fucking energy. But like, that's just one aspect. I'm just like, I'm really trying to be better about being patient, but it's just so hard, because if there's one thing witchcraft and my spiritual practice has brought into my life, especially since my consecration to Guadalupe, it is my personal sovereignty and autonomy to not fucking take bullshit, which is so hard when you work at a customer service job and you're expected to take this bullshit with a happy fucking smile on your face. And I'm just, again, since I'm so burnt out and done with this job that I've been at for hitting 5 years, I can't take it anymore, Fonzie. I can't. And so when I have those bouts of anger sometimes and someone matches that energy with me, or they come in hot and I'm already feeling fucking hot, like, it is so hard for me to like maintain that patience and that prudence, and to like take it with a smile, you know, because I'm like, how dare you fucking come in? I don't give a fuck that I'm at work. I'm a human fucking being, and you're coming and talking to me like this. Like, I don't have the time of day for this. But obviously a bitch needs to get a paycheck to pay their bills. So anyways, to answer your question about sin, just impatience and anger, judgment. Sometimes I have a hard time judging people, which I know I shouldn't be, but also judging people can be really fucking fun. And then just like, or like even just procrastination. I mean, I've mentioned to you already how like for the last few months, I was really neglecting my ancestor altar, Santa Muerte, Guadalupe, like all of my spirits, barely changing their water once a week, like just really struggling. So that for me was a sin. I was separating myself from the divine, but also like struggling with my own mental health and anxiety. So it's kind of just like, where does that line draw of like taking care of yourself while still maintaining your relationship with the divine? You know, like it wasn't as if I was packing all my altars away and throwing them in the closet. It was just like, I need to make sure I'm okay before I try to approach them, you know. I hope that answers your question. That's just like a
No, it
tad
does.
bit on kind of like my own sin I've been dealing with in my day-to-day life.
You know what, to be fair, in your defense, I don't think it's worth your time to grant those people your patience because they don't deserve it. Now, when you're talking about like granting patience and giving yourself time to kind of evaluate your feelings and your anger, and also kind of not succumbing to like some sort of like knee-jerk reaction, those are reserved for people that you care about. Those are reserved for your family, that is reserved for your friends. So like if you're reacting the same way you did with those customers to the people that you care about, like to your friends, that's a different story. When it comes to folks who aren't feeding into your life, who are literally passerbys, and they come to you with that kind of energy, they don't deserve your benefit of the doubt.
Real quick, does my audio sound okay? Because I just realized my mic is on my computer mic and not my professional mic, I think.
Turn it on and let me see the difference.
I don't know if it lets me reset it since we're recording. Fuck. That's gonna be a bitch.
Oh yeah, it does kind of sound kind of a little grainy.
Damn.
Now that you mentioned it.
Yeah, it says it's on my default, not my Yeti mic. Fuck.
Oh no. You can't change it? You're on an Apple, right?
I'm on Apple, but like it doesn't let me change it right now in the browser while we're recording.
Because you're already recording.
That is fucking irritating.
How far? Oh my god.
Does it let us pause the recording and then resume it? Is there an option to pause it?
Yes. Hang on, let's see. Let me pause it. Well, damn it. Oh, fuck. I don't know why I wasn't paying attention. Your voice is just it's so angelic. It doesn't even matter what microphone you're using, because it just sounds it's like, bells.
I was just wondering why my wavelength was so tiny compared to yours, because my fucking mouth is in my microphone like this.
I also have a big ass mouth and a really loud voice, so that's probably why.
No, you're good. I don't want to restart. I was wondering why every time I was hitting my mute button to go for a swig of water, the wavelength was still picking up noises. So I was like, this isn't clicking. That's fine. Okay, we can. Oh, we're still recording. Okay. I'm sorry. I cut you off because I realized that it is not.
No, that's okay. I totally lost
good
my
audio.
train of thought anyway. You don't deserve. Not everyone deserves your fucking decency. Honestly, like, let's abandon that. Like, that kind of goes into like, you always gonna be love and light. No, fuck that. Bye bye. Like, fuck that shit. Like, I do not subscribe to that mentality. I give people what they deserve, what they are entitled to, and I get to decide what they are entitled to. So if come to me correct, I will return correct. I will act accordingly. Okay? That is the way the world works. But if you do not come to me correct, I will slash your tires. Like, I will listen. It's not gonna be nice. Okay? It won't be nice. But those are very valid things. Working on your patience and your anger, I think, is because when you kind of stew in when you stew in your anger and you stew in kind of your the things that annoy you, it does kind of draw you away from why you do this work in the first place, right?
Right.
Just generally being a better person. So if you're starting to recognize that this is not just something that happens at work, it happens all the time with everyone, then that is time to reflect and kind of regain ground,
Totally. But what about you? What does sin more look like in action for you in your practice, or if you've been struggling with how you define it as of late? Like, what does it look like for you?
It's kind of vices. That is a big thing for me. Is vices, because I am a slave to my and also I am a slave to my habits. And I always have this idea in my head of who I want to be. And that person is very attainable. That person is very achievable, right? There's all of these things in my life that I can control to be able to become that person that I want to be. Let's say, let's take, for example, I want to be a person who actively eats with intent. And when I say eat with intent, it's just like not just buy things or eat things because I'm hungry, but eat things that I know nourishes my body properly. I want to also be someone who buys with intent, because shopping is also a vice that I have. And buying things that I don't need. So buying with intent is very important to me. Also, I think, now this is kind of touchy because I think it is and I also think it isn't. Sex is it's important to me, but I also think there is a such thing as overindulging in sex for the sake of kind of, the reason for it is important, right? Why are you doing it, right? There is a reason why you do sex. If you're doing it just to get your rocks off, that's totally fine. I think that's cool. But if you're starting to see that you're doing it to get your rocks off because you're avoiding certain situations in your life,
like a coping mechanism,
it's kind of like escapism. You know what I mean? You try to use it as like for me, for example, when I'm feeling anxious or depressed, I like to eat chocolate cake. That's like my favorite thing.
Hi.
Yay!
Did it start the recording over?
No.
Okay, thank God, because on mine it started from 0 again.
Ooh, okay. Now your gain is like, whew, we got to crank that down to like 9.
Oh my God, yeah, my wavelength, Jesus. Hold on, is this? Did I just go lower or higher?
Let me see. Mic test.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Perfect.
That's good. Okay.
Okay, we're
cool.
back in business.
Okay, sorry. So as you were saying,
I was talking about
chocolate cake.
Talking about chocolate cake. So when I'm feeling like anxious or depressed, like I usually kind of like fall on a chocolate cake, and then like it just makes me feel better. So sex is one of my chocolate cakes. And that's something that I had to kind of realize. It's like it's not even just for the sake of having a good time with someone, because Ryan, I'm telling you, I will literally, I don't know if this is good or bad. You are more than free to tell me what your opinion is. There are times where I will literally meet someone online. It's like 3 or 4 words, like the conversation, like the messaging on, and then I'll know where to go. I'll walk in, I'll do the deed, and I'll leave. No name, no face, no conversation, nothing. It's literally just kind of like, I don't know, like a purge.
Totally.
Like literally and figuratively, it feels like a purge, you know. And I feel like I was kind of using that as kind of like chocolate cake, you know. It didn't really solve any problems. It just kind of made me feel better for a second.
Absolutely.
So vices, those are the things that I feel kind of pull me away from my devotion. It pulls me away from God, because instead of using that time to pray and to find guidance and to find fulfillment, I succumb to my vices, because my vices are easy. My vices are really, really easy.
Totally.
Divination, prayer, all of those other things are hard. And they're tedious and they're boring sometimes. And sometimes things just don't come through.
Right.
But you know what I can really count on is food.
Chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's chocolate cake. But you're exactly right. It's food, it's cigarettes, it's alcohol, and it's sex. I can always count on those things. Those never let me down, you know?
I 100% empathize with that. I agree. I would add, not to piggyback off you, but not to piggyback off you, but I feel the same way. Like, Jesus Christ.
Ooh, that's God trying to tell you to shut the fuck up.
Not to piggyback off of you, but I empathize and feel the same way, because food for me, oh yeah, like I'm on a medication. I'm on Accutane. I fully disclose that. I have no shame about that because I used to struggle, or still do struggle, with acne, like as a teenager up until now on this medication. And like the slightest things will make you break out: stress, hormones, certain foods. But being on Accutane, like I haven't fucking broken out like at all now that I've been on it for several months. I don't even get a fucking pimple. And so I've been gluttonous with like dairy and like fast food and just like, I also recently switched ADHD meds. So I'm now on Adderall, which is also appetite suppressant. So it's kind of like, even though I've been eating like shit because of the Adderall, I've been like maintaining the same weight. So I'm like, oh, I can have McDonald's like 5 days in a row and it's okay because I'm not gaining any weight or breaking out, which I know is not healthy for my body, you know? And so for me, food as well, because and drugs, like you were saying, or not drugs, but like the vices for me would be drugs, like specifically marijuana. Like that's something I struggled with in the past. Not too much of a smoker nowadays until recently, where like before this last trip to Portland, my friend and I kept getting high and going to McDonald's or In-N-Out. And then it became a habit. Like literally every other night we were going. And then I was eating out a lot with my partner when I was in Portland. And even for the past several weeks that I've been back, again, it's that I've been smoking a lot more often. And it to me, it's become a sin and less so a tool for spiritual enlightenment, because I'll smoke and I'll either fall asleep or I'll make the decision to go get fast food. And I'm doing all these things that, again, to me are sinful because it's detracting me from time I could be doing divination, time I'm spending with my ancestors, you know, this, that, and the third. So like, for instance, yesterday I turned it from a vice to an aid by I started smoking more with Santissima. Like she loves marijuana. Santa Muerte loves weed. And so I've been smoking with her and talking to her because, again, that's something I was neglecting, just sitting with her and talking with her. And then something I promised my ancestors I would do for months was move their altar. And I finally did that yesterday. I smoked with Santissima, and then I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to do it. Even though I'm high and I don't want to, I'm going to do it because that's commitment. So I moved my ancestor altar. So it's like, it's really, again, temperance and the devil card. It's all about finding that balance and not being retained to those vices, to those indulgences, you know, because having a bit of chocolate cake here and there, that's okay. We can't deny, we are physical beings living in a physical world. We're material beings. We're material girls. It's okay to indulge ourselves. But when those indulgences become 24/7 vices, that's where the sin kicks in, you know, like cigarettes. I only smoked cigarettes like for several months at a time at a certain job I used to be at. But then I quit cold turkey. It was easy. And now once in a blue moon, if I'm super drunk, which I don't really do anymore, I'll crave a cigarette or two. But like for other people, they've abused tobacco and now they can't go 5 minutes without going on a cigarette break, you know? And not no shade to no shade to you or anyone, but just like it's like that imbalance of like, oh, I do it once in a blue moon to like, I can't live, like I feel like I can't live without it, you know?
Well, let's be clear, because folks are not abusing tobacco; they're abusing nicotine.
Yes, sorry.
Because the addictive component of cigarettes is the nicotine. It's not necessarily the tobacco. You know, tribes and indigenous folks have been smoking tobacco for thousands of years. But it is the dependence on the nicotine that's the issue. Now, let me also kind of turn this on its head, because I think when you take those vices and turn it on its head, you can actually make them not you can kind of justify, in my opinion, you doing those things. Okay. Let's take sex out of the equation, because that's a very kind of murky kind of topic. But let's say, for example, let's take the example of shopping, okay, or like just kind of shopping without intent, just getting that endorphins kind of that endorphin rush to buy something and have something, right? Turn that on its head and go shopping with a friend. You know, like go with a friend and go shopping, because that's at least something that you're sharing an experience with somebody, right? And you can make that like that you make that into a memory, or you make that into an experience, and you spend time with someone else. Also, going to a bar with somebody else and, you know, indulging in those really fun things like drinking and smoking cigarettes. Like, smoking a cigarette is not a sin. You're allowed to do that. I enjoy smoking. It's not even just the fact that like nicotine within itself is an addictive drug, but I actually enjoy the act of smoking, like smoking a cigarette, smoking a cigar with a drink with friends, because it's a very social thing. Smoking hookah, it's a very social thing where we can like kind of sit around, talk to each other, commune with each other, share experiences, share, you know, whatever. I primarily only smoke when I drink. That's usually when I really like to smoke, because like kind of the feeling of smoking and also the feeling of drinking, like how smoking or cigarettes are kind of a stimulant, and then like drinking is, or alcohol is like a depressant. It's a really fun kind of blend. I like doing those two things at the same time, and it's just kind of like, I like it. It's like an experience and it's fun, you know, and I'm being social, I'm around people, you know, and but it's like the idea of like, after a long day of work, I'll go home, I'll have a couple seltzers or some like whiskey and picklebacks, and then smoke a cigarette by myself, because like I just want to numb the day, you know. That's kind of different, and that's also not like the same as like unwinding, where you'll have like a drink and like enjoy a
Right.
TV show, and like afterwards you go into the shower and you do your whole self, like that's self-care, right? That's taking care of yourself. But I'm talking about like just like sitting with yourself and your feelings, trying to numb yourself and trying to forget, you know, those are, you kind of have to discern those two things, right? Because
Right.
there are times where I come home and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to have a whiskey and a pickleback, and I'm going to have a cigarette, and I'm going to watch a TV show or a movie. I'm going to jump into the shower. I'm going to take, you know, I'm going to do my whole skincare routine. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go to bed early. That's self-care, you know, that's taking care of yourself. And then I'm going to, you know, do a little bit of magic before I go to bed, and then I'm going to go to bed. And then tomorrow is going to be a better day, you know, whatever. So it's like those two dichotomies. You have to kind of recognize which one is which, and which one you should be cultivating, and which one you should be kind of working on, kind of pushing away. So
Absolutely.
yeah, chocolate cake is not a sin. Cigarettes are not a sin. Sex is not a sin. Alcohol is not a sin. Weed is not a sin. Drugs are not a, like, drugs wouldn't exist if it weren't for God. Like, God made
Right.
drugs.
Right.
Like, you're allowed to use drugs, you know.
Yeah. It's all a matter of balance, of temperance. It's just like, where are you dedicating the majority of your time and energy, and are those things that you're dedicating your time and energy to deteriorating you? Because when it starts to kill you, like that's a sin, because not only is it killing you, it's killing your spirit, your soul. So yeah. Also, sidetrack, I'm hoping that it saved my previous audio before I left. That's my only concern. Are you muted?
I think it did. I think it saves it automatically as we record, but if not, then we can just do this again.
Okay.
I'm
You know what,
totally fine with that.
bitch? Okay, I'm not the biggest. Sorry to cut you off. What were you
That's
saying?
okay. No, I was gonna say that's totally fine with me. I don't care.
I mean, I love kikiing with you and talking anyways.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe after this and we have to do it again, we'd come up with even more better things to
That's
say.
true.
But yo, like, it wasn't until maybe the last 2 or so years that I've really started to actually notice the effects of Mercury retrograde and Mercury retro shade. Like my tech, I always have like one tech thing that breaks, or things just start to falter. So when I got a Saint medal of Archangel Raphael from Hoodoo Moses, he also sent me this it's the sigil of Archangel Raphael, except it's in Hebrew. And so I put it in the back of my phone, because I'm like, I'm not dealing with this fucking time. And my phone's been completely fine, but like my computer, things at work, bitch, like our computers, our machines that dispense, like, I notice it every time. And I try to be like, is this just confirmation bias? Like, is it because we're in Mercury retrograde and Mercury retrograde that I'm paying attention to it? But no, it's like, I've noticed like these patterns happen every fucking Mercury retrograde. The last dude who broke my heart, we decided to be boyfriends, which, against my fucking better judgment, during Mercury retrograde, when you don't make commitments and contracts, and look what fucking happened. So, and I can cut this out of the episode if you don't want it, but just like, it's just wild. It's just wild to see how you're muted again.
No, yeah, keep this in the conversation, because I think it's important. Because
Yeah.
there is a confirmation bias that you should be definitely paying attention to. Pay attention to that because you don't try to kid yourself. But at the same time, it's like, if you're starting to notice a pattern, like, this is probably not confirmation bias. Like, this is probably, okay, this is something that's actually happening to me, you know. Especially because, like what you said, if you're talking about a sigil on your phone, your phone's working fine, but everything else is going to shit, then yes. That's fucked up energy. That's just yucky. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like, it doesn't usually happen with tech stuff with me, but it's people, my kind of communication skills, or people's communication skills with me kind of they kind of take a back seat. I don't know why. Like there are times where I do kind of find myself being in a place where I'm just like, you're annoying. I don't want to talk to you right now. It happens a lot during these times.
Yeah, a lot of disagreements last fall during that Mercury retrograde. I was getting into so many disagreements, or just again miscommunications with my best friend that I was living with at the time.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a real thing. But also don't let that also be the thing for everything. Like, calm down. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, totally.
Tell folks on the internet, it's like, yo, this might just because life sucks sometimes. Like, just relax. You know.
I remember one time I was friends with this chick in college, and she was like, "Oh my god, I hate Mercury retrograde. Last time my grandma died during Mercury retrograde," and I was just like, okay. I don't think
that's not the reason why.
Yeah.
Baby, I don't think that's the reason why.
I was like, sweetie, I think it was just her time to go. I don't think Mercury being in retrograde had to do it. Unless she was on life support, and for whatever reason, Mercury retrograde fucked up the life support machine.
Right. Then I would be like, okay, then yeah. But it was probably gonna happen anyway. But also at the same time, if like someone came out to me, I'd be like, oh no, you're probably like, I'm not gonna tell someone it's like, yeah, it's Mercury's problem. I mean, it's Mercury's fault, not anything else. I'm not that girl, but I mean, I'm friends with people who are those girls, who would say, I'm not gonna say anything. I don't want to get myself in trouble. But also, now we're kind of not getting it, but whatever. Y'all, right now as we're recording this podcast, it is May 5th.
Cinco de Mayo.
The interwebs is on fire right now. There are a lot of things, I'm sure, if you are within the occult space, that are just happening right now that are just, wow. Like, things are just on, like, Twitter is on fire. Well, it was definitely on fire last week. Whoa. It was really on fire last week. But, like, holy shit, like, what is going on? There's all these, like, different, like, people putting their opinions forward about Roe versus Wade, where I'm just like, is this really how you feel? Like, I admire you. I admire who you are, and I admire the work that you do. But I'm just like, this is not who I thought you were. Like, this is so strange. You know what I mean? Because, like, I'm starting to, thanks to a lot of my friends on the interwebs and the Instagrams and the Twitters, I've become so much more unapologetic about who I am and like my witchcraft and stuff like that, where I don't really necessarily feel like I need to tiptoe anymore. Like, I can just say whatever the fuck I want. But there are folks who are just kind of like still kind of, I don't know. I think there's still a little bit too much virtue signaling that's happening right now, and it's getting really annoying.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. It's like, not to, again, we're turning into social justice topics here, but like people who are talking about the Roe versus Wade topic and just simply showing a graphic like, oh my god, everyone should be entitled to abortions, but like, that's it, just kind of, again, like you said, virtue signaling, kind of just very like,
what are you doing?
Superficial. Like, what are you doing?
Like,
I mean, all y'all, I need to shout out Fonzie, because Fonzie's going to be participating in an event called Blasphemies, where I'm not 100% sure. I'm assuming it's going to happen by the time this episode publishes.
If it doesn't,
but
that's fine.
But if it doesn't, either way, Fonzie's partaking in an event where they're providing services, and they're contributing every single proceed that they profit from that service to, what was it exactly? I know it was towards abortion. Was it abortion clinics or abortion?
Abortion services and resources. I don't know which they are yet. I still have to do my research, but they're going to be hopefully local, because I don't feel comfortable doing anything. I want to make sure that they're going into like nonprofits that also kind of incorporate people of color. I also want to make sure it's local and it's not funded by the government, because I don't know where the fuck their money is going. So I still have to do a little bit of research, but anything that is going to be going into everything, I will, if you guys need it, I will show you the fucking receipt. Like literally the physical receipt if you need to, but I will take 100% of what I make that day, or those 2 days, because I'll be at the event for the 2 days that it's happening. I'm taking 100% of what I make in that event and donating it to abortion services and abortion resources. That while Roe versus Wade is still kind of a conversation and things haven't happened yet, while abortion is still legal, these foundations have money to fight against whatever's going to happen, because that is where the resources need to go, not just actually funding actual abortions, but funding the fight to fight for legal abortions. So that's what I want to make sure I'm doing. And that is what my witchcraft is all about. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything. That's not even just my witchcraft. That's just me as a person. That's where I want to put my energy into. And I'm probably going to use it as an offering to Mary and Saint Anthony.
That's beautiful. That's so admirable.
Thank you.
That's so admirable. And it's just, like how are you going to look at that and say that, or how is someone like an evangelical Christian going to look at that and say that's sin when you're quite literally doing something that's benefiting the community, which is quite the opposite of sin?
Because I'm doing it for abortions, and abortions are sinful. That's why. Abortion's a sin. Well, abortion is murder, apparently. I guess ending the term of a embryo is murder.
And like the Catholic dogma teaches that, like, oh, once, like, you have an embryo that
life starts
takes
at
a heartbeat
conception
or whatever. Yeah, because, like, the Holy Spirit breathes life into it, so like once it has that life, you're killing something, and that's murder. But also it's like, again, if Jesus appeared today in today's day and age and saw the oppression of marginalized communities, of queer people, of trans people, of communities of color, and saw the circumstances in which if they were being forced to not have an abortion, I'm pretty sure he'd be like, no, these people can have abortions. Like, you're making their life worse by forcing them to carry this baby to term, or ectopic pregnancies, which can result in not just the death of the embryo, but also the mother having it. And it doesn't make any sense. And again, more than half of the time, these evangelical Christians don't want to support the life of the baby afterwards.
Exactly.
Especially, God forbid, it's a person of color or a trans or queer baby. Like, it's just a matter of controlling people's bodies. You don't actually give a fuck about being pro-life.
What Ryan just said is it's gold. Now, what people need to understand is that the misconception that a lot of folks have, especially with, oh my God, this is going to get political. I swear to God, I'm not going to make this a long-winded thing. I really don't want to, because I am politically involved. I do
10 minutes later.
I know. I do. I pay attention to politics. I do. I think it's important to pay attention to politics in some extent. I think it's important for folks to be aware. Here's the thing. There is this misconception that conservatives believe that or people believe that conservatives are pro-life because they want to save the life of that embryo. Okay? But if they actually were pro-life, they would make sure that resources after the birth of the child were available. As little as childcare for folks who go to work, who work a 9 to 5, they don't exist. The funding does not exist for folks who are forced to bring the baby to term, and if they get pregnant, they are not allowed to terminate the baby, and they are forced to bring the baby to term, a baby that they are not financially and just financially able to take care of. There are no resources after the baby is born to make sure that that child at the very least stays alive. There are no food programs. There are no child care programs. There are not, because the solution to everything, if you can't take care of the baby, put them in the foster system, put them up for adoption. That is not the solution, because those things are also incredibly underfunded. And also, the foster system is trash. It is absolute trash. You are literally yo-yoing these children to different folks who are only fostering these children for money.
And that sounds like more of a sin to me.
Yes, exactly. They don't give a shit about these kids at all, but they know these people exist. So they're like, put them in the foster. Someone's going to take care of them because we're paying them to take care of them. This is a solution. There is no pro-life here. There is no such thing as pro-life, because pro-life doesn't fucking. If there was a thing of pro-life, then that means that the life of the child afterwards was guaranteed. That doesn't exist. So that's why this whole bullshit about, like, God. These soapbox motherfuckers who are saying, like, I'm pro-life because I believe that life starts at the moment of conception. Also, going back to what you were talking about, Jesus, I was like, Jesus, there's this thing that exists now called science. I would like to tell you about it. So tell me what you feel about like the embryo is not sustainable until a certain
Mhm.
point. So can you like tell these people that, you know, I think Jesus would be like, oh yeah, you're right. But I also think that
Right.
Jesus is aware of that. He understands that science exists.
I mean, if God is all knowing, then he
He
sure
should
must.
know. Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Science exists and people need to stop using. Anyways, yeah, that was an interesting tangent. But yes, I will be donating 100% of my proceeds from Blast to Meat to abortion services and resources. And that is, and also you said that was admirable. I don't care that it's admirable. It is not. Well, thank you for saying it, but I didn't do it to be admirable. I did it for my
Right.
I did it for my community. I did it because
Of course.
my community needs me in some way, and this is a little thing that it's a very little thing. It is a little thing. There is so much more that needs to be done, but it is something that I feel I can do and I have the privilege to do, because I don't need that event to pay my rent. I have a job, I have a career, and I know my privilege. So I'm going to use all of that to go into something that could actually help the community. So in saying that, now that we're not talking about sin again, I'm sorry, but if you do identify as a witch, if that is, and you identify as a witch with a capital W, what are you doing? What?
Besides promoting your book.
But girl, oh. Yeah, for example, hypothetically speaking. Yes, so if you are a witch, if you identify as a witch, what are you doing? Like, it's really cute. It's really cute saying like things like everyone deserves the right to an abortion. Men should not be controlling women's bodies, or women who have uterus, or people who have uteruses as bodies. Like, that's all cute and fine, but that shit does not matter. What are you actually doing? Are you doing magic to help this cause? Are you donating your money or your time? Are you offering resources? Are you spreading resources that could actually help the cause? Are you showing folks how to, take care of themselves if they do decide to, are you funding, organizations that protect folks who do get abortions? Or are you protecting the folks who help other folks get abortion? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing for the cause? Because if you are a witch, you're supposed to be a servant to your community. That is what being a witch is. I'm sorry, that's just my personal opinion. If you disagree with me, then fine. But if you do identify as a witch, what are you doing? But anyway, I'm done with my soapbox. Now you talk. You talk now.
No, I mean we've covered how we interpret sin in our own personal frameworks of our spiritual practices. We've gone over examples of how sin shows up in our lives and our practices. I mean, is there anything else you want to ask me or talk about sin in general?
Give me a second, because I feel like I wrote something down that I don't have my notebook on me right now. No, it's Oh, yeah, okay. So what do you recommend to folks who, I think we're going to have the same answer here, but what do you recommend to folks who are actively trying to deconstruct their idea of sin, and kind of deconstruct the whole idea in general? Like, well, how do you think that they should do that?
Yeah, I mean, again, especially coming from a religious background and now as a folk practitioner, it's really just taking the word, stripping it down, fuck the dogma. You don't even need to use the word sin. Just reflect in your life, what separates me from the person that I want to be? What separates me from my spirits? What separates me from God, source, the universe? What am I partaking in? How am I thinking? How am I acting? What am I doing in any way, shape, or form that is preventing me from communing with the divine and communing with my highest self? That right there, that is sin, and you don't even have to use the word sin. So to reflect on that, and not only reflect on those things that you consider to be quote unquote sin, but what can you change? What can you do to better that? And that's where like journaling comes in. You can even look at prompts. This falls a lot more into like shadow work in a sense. things of that nature. But you don't even, like I said, you don't even need to use the word sin, but like since we're deconstructing it here, this is the word that we are using to take it again away from the church and reconstruct it in a sense that applies to our practices as folk Catholics, our practices as modern day witches, and things of that nature. So that's what I would say. Just whether or not you use the word sin, just consider what you're embodying in your minds, your thoughts, your actions, your beliefs, your habits that draw you away from the divine, and start there.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. I'm just going to add a little bit to that. I implore anyone who is actually kind of deconstruct the idea of sin to read a book that I've mentioned on this podcast before that helped a lot with my idea, kind of deconstructing my whole entire idea of my faith. It is a book called Unafraid, Moving Beyond Fear-Based Faith, by Benjamin L. Corey. Now, this book it's a really easy read. But basically what it was, I read this like 2 years ago, so like if I get the details incorrect, I'm sorry. But basically what it is, it's a story about Benjamin Corey, who is the author, about how he was a pastor for a church and how he deconstructed his idea of what the church actually taught him. And the base of the book, and like kind of like the whole theme of the book, is that sin and the idea of sin and what the dogma of the church has taught is that you're supposed to be afraid of God, that you're supposed to be terrified of God, and that you're supposed to live your life as a fear or a God-fearing person, and that is the way you win your place in heaven. But what Benjamin realized, or is teaching in this book, is that the opposite of love is not hate, it is fear. So if you fear God, you are not loving God. So the idea of sin is kind of a way to push this propaganda on how to control our lives and the things that we are and are not allowed to do, so that you fear God actively, right? But like I said, it is impossible for you to love God and win your way in heaven if you fear him or fear them. So you got to stop being scared. Stop being scared of God and start fucking loving them. Fucking love God. Love your heavenly court, and don't pray to your heavenly court because you feel like you are, I don't know, like it's an alliance or like some sort of like it feels more of a transaction, right? When you're doing it just for the sake of doing it. Do it because you love it. Do it because you love them. Do it because you love Mary. Do it because you love your saints. Do it because you love your angels. Do it because you love God. And if you can't deconstruct that, maybe this path is not for you, right? Go find someone else to pray to. So go find someone else to love, right? Because as scary as Santissima is, do you fear her in the sense where because you love her, correct?
I fear punishment from her if I don't fucking follow through with something I promised her, if I act out of line with how I know she wants me to be acting. But like that, I wanted to touch on you touching on like fear of God, right? That's something else I had to deconstruct, because I've been reading more, even from Catholic theology, that fear doesn't mean to be scared of God, but rather the fear of offending God. Like fear more so in the sense of reverence and awe, just being like,
oh yeah,
holy shit, that's God, that's perfection, that's heaven, right? Because I remember way early on, I think in our very first episode with Burgundy, how we talked about like fear being like, why are you scared of God? But then that's something else I've reconstructed, like, oh, fear more so is in reverence and awe and like the fear of hurting someone. Because like when we talk about like fear of God, we could reframe it as, I don't want to hurt my relationship with the divine. I don't want to hurt you, Fonzie. Like I fear hurting you. So like I think that's how we need to.
That's
people
different.
should be better about like reframing like the fear of the Lord. Because that was something too. I agree with you at first, where I was just like, yeah, like why do we have to scare God? But it's not so much about scare God. Why do we have to be scared of God? But it's not so much about being scared of them, but rather like scared of or fear of like offending them.
That is different. That you're correct. I agree with you. I think the fear of offending anyone or anything is healthy. But I also think that fearing just for the sake of
like ignorant
redemption,
fear.
yeah, just like non-consensual fear. You know, does that make sense? Like I think that you should fear with consent. You know what I mean? Not just for the sake because someone said that you should be terrified of God because he is a jealous God. Like, no. Let's pause for a second. You know, I should fear God only in the sense because I need to make sure that my devotion to him is true.
Right.
You know, not because, like, I would be terrified of God if my devotion to him was untrue or dishonest, you know? But that is kind of like the basis of the book. I encourage folks to read that book because it was very enlightening for me. It's a very easy read. But the first step I think that you should do in regards to deconstructing the idea of sin is, how do you define sin, right? Is it because you're scared, or is it because it's actually wrong? Like, is it actually a wrong thing to do? Or do you believe it's a wrong thing to do because someone told you should be scared to do it? Because having sex with men was terrifying to me because I thought I was going to go to hell for it. And I realized after having sex with the first man I ever, it's like, I don't want to do anything else. This is all I want to do for the rest of my life.
And this is the part of the episode where we plug Fonzie's OnlyFans. So if you really support our content,
girl, oh my god, if someone ever finds my alt Twitter, game over for me. They'll be like,
I hate how Twitter will be like, oh, we found someone who is in your contacts, but it's not their actual Twitter, it's their alt Twitter. And then that's how I accidentally saw one of my friend's dicks, and I was like, oh,
that's fun.
Hey there. Or I saw like one of my childhood best friends like have an OnlyFans, which is like, go her, I support her, but I'm just like, I didn't expect. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? I don't remember having this person in my contacts, and I hit it, and I was like, oh, I was like, we went to Christian school together.
Work. I love that. That's a great story. I love that. But also, it's like, yeah, I think the suggested kind of thing with the algorithm is very annoying. I think that needs to fucking stop. Also, the oh my god, I'm getting into something else. We can talk about this another time. I'm sorry. But the algorithm on Instagram is getting really fucking annoying. There are times where I don't see Chris's posts anymore. I miss Chris's posts.
I barely see them anymore, to be honest.
It's really fucking, or not just Chris, but like other people. Like, because I'll see like an actual post from someone I follow, and then a suggested post, and then like someone I don't even fucking follow, and then an ad, and then another person I don't fucking follow, and then like another like post that it's like, this is getting ridiculous.
Well, you know, Instagram updated so you can change it. Like I keep
Yes,
forgetting to do this, but you can sort it by favorites, and I keep forgetting to make like a favorite list of like creators that I actually care about that I want to see consecutively.
Well, no. If you go up to your Instagram and you actually click the Instagram with
the
down
that's
arrow,
what I'm talking about.
It the following, don't do the favorites, because the following tab is chronological.
Oh, wait a minute, what? Hold up.
Because the following one, it posts chronologically.
Oh.
So all of that is how the algorithm used to be, where your feed was how people posted throughout the day. So that's the way it's supposed to be.
But I follow way too many. Honestly, I need to go through all the people I follow, because half those accounts I don't even pay attention to their content and don't want to see. So like, I really do need to make just a curated list of like the creators that I actually want to see their content. Anyways,
Absolutely.
We're veering off.
Yeah, we're veering off. Yeah, we're veering off. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about. Sin is not a checklist of things that you need to do before you get into heaven. Like,
shout out to W from St. Anthony's Tongue, because that's.
Oh yeah, that's straight from his podcast. Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not a checklist. You're gonna be fine. But I also don't believe that heaven is what heaven is. You know, there's things I don't know. Anyways, that's a different kind of. Heaven is a good episode. We should talk about heaven.
Oh yeah,
talk about hell too. That's even more.
Well, W is about to release an episode on hell. I don't know if you saw their story. Their next episode's going to be on hell. Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna
I'm excited.
It's gonna be really fun. But anyways, with that said, my name is Fonzie. I was about to say my actual God-given name. Not my nickname. I was about to say what my actual name was. Fonzie is not my God-given name, by the way. I have an actual name. My name is Fonzie. I am Witch Illumiscente on Instagram and Twitter.
And I am Ryan, aka the Mestizo Mystic on Instagram, or just at Mestizo Mystic on Twitter.
And we will see you all on our next Unholy Communion.